Thank you for joining us. We'll just wait a couple of moments for others to join us. Thank you. Welcome everybody to today's webinar hosted by ECIS. ECIS, the Educational Collaborative of International Schools, established for 55 years as a not-for-profit organisation. We have over 500 members in 78 countries. My name is Georgie McIntyre and I am the Chief Learning Officer at ECIS, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's webinar. We will be sharing a recording of today's webinar, and there's an opportunity at the end and during the event to ask questions in either the Q&A box or the chat box. As part of the ECIS community, we have a number of key partners who provide support and services to our schools community. ECIS are extremely proud to partner with Texthelp. Please let me introduce our expert today. Patrick is the resident educational technology strategist at Texthelp. A passionate educator, Patrick is an accomplished international speaker, blogger, panelist and contributor across a wide range of media, whilst focusing on how technology can make a real and meaningful impact on teaching and learning for us all. Patrick has a particular interest in inclusion and equality for all. An Apple Educator Mentor and Google Certified Educator, Patrick received the UK Digital Leader 100 Award in 2016. He's worked with thousands of schools on areas such as literacy, maths and inclusion. And apologies, I'm not actually sitting in an airfield, but I will now please hand you over and join me in welcoming Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgie. I think I'm not sitting in an airfield either, but I do have a very loud dog, which I can hear whimpering just downstairs. So as usual with our new normal of presentations online, I'll apologize in advance if he decides to make an appearance. It will raise the game today for sure. Thank you, Georgie, and thank you to all the team at ECIS for facilitating this and the other webinars from Texthelp. We really value our relationship with ECIS and the community that they bring together to attendees. And if you've never had a chance to present for ECIS before, I highly recommend that you do, if only because ECIS and all the companies and partners that I work with do give you the very best intros before you start your webinar. So thank you, Georgie, for that. So welcome today. We're going to go through some very specific things today on our webinar related to literacy and fluency. We're going to be talking about written fluency, but also talking about oral fluency as well, specifically today with technology tools from ourselves at Texthelp. So I'll be your host today, and you're all very welcome, and I hope you're all safe and well. Who I am, Georgie gave you the kind of the formal bio, but the bottom line for me is my role as EdTech strategist is to simply help educators from a teaching and learning standpoint to get the very best from both our tools and education technology in general. So it's my aim always to help facilitate change and encourage change in terms of your practice, and also give you as much help and support to be able to do that. So I don't just focus on our own tools, but we will be actually looking specifically at Texthelp tools today. So it's an exciting day for me to be able to do that. If you want to reach out after today, you can get me at edtech@texthelp.com, or a quick follow on Twitter would be lovely at th_PatrickM. As I've been telling everybody, the Bitmoji you see to the right of your screen there is my pre-COVID Bitmoji. I'm really hoping that it looks a little bit slimmer after lockdown is relaxed a little bit more and we replace that. But listen, I'll be with you through the course of today for maximum of an hour or so. We do hope we have time for Q&A, but I would encourage you just to post the Q&A, as Georgie has said, in the panel on your Zoom screen, and my colleague Carrie Ann is standing by there to try and address each of those live. So before I get into the technology, I think it's important that we mention this, in that for me, the pedagogy, the focus on teaching and learning outcomes and positive impact is the most important thing. So whilst some may see me as a little bit of a nerd, a little bit of a geek when it comes to EdTech in classrooms, I'm driven by pedagogy and good practice. And I hope that we can relate that good practice into specific strategies within our technology tools today. So technology for me is always that thing, that mechanism that underpins that sound approach to teaching and learning first. And that's really the angle that I come from at all of the EdTech sessions that I present, to make sure that you've got effective strategies there. This is not about technology for technology's sake at all. It's there to support and enhance. And on that very same theme, I always find this important when we're talking about a very important area such as literacy and how wide reaching it is. We don't want to get bogged down into tech. We don't want to have to think about a Windows machine or a Google Chromebook or an Android tablet. The importance is that technology should be transparent to the literacy process and should work across multiple platforms. And so the tools that I'm going to show you today, particularly the first tool, Read and Write, will work absolutely anywhere. So whether you're a school with iPads or Chromebooks or Windows machines, we want to make sure that your students have a consistent experience. That's really important when we get down into literacy, because the importance of technology there is to make sure that it's delivered at the heart of learning and doesn't confuse learning or ever take away from it. And the fact that it works across these platforms is really key. So we're not going to be talking about those things today. Just rest assured that when I show you some of our tools, that you know that they will work exactly where your students and your staff need them. And that brings me on just as part of our introduction to Texthelp itself, the company that I work for and that are partners with ECIS. And we have a very simple mission. And sometimes, you know, I don't put this up on our webinars, but I do think it's very important. And that is that we want to help every child understand and be understood. And the reason I put that up today is because when we pick up the theme of literacy, that it's really, really crucial that we help our students understand and be understood. And that really, in a nutshell, is what our tools seek to do. And that is our ethos and mission in all the things that we do. And I'll be able to take you through how we translate that into practical guidance with our tools in the classroom as part of today's webinar. On that though, it's probably just worth mentioning that I'm only going to look at a couple of tools just for the time that we have available to us today. And the tool that I'm going to be looking at primarily and for most of the time is the tool in purple there. That's Read and Write, 30 million plus users around the world. But this is part of a family of tools that we have here at Texthelp. So Read and Write supports reading, writing, comprehension. WriQ, the big Q there you see, integrated assessment of writing. So we won't be covering it today, but an essential part, of course, of the writing process, as an example, is that ability to feedback and redraft and revise work, and WriQ helps us do that. PDF, we will see, this is Texthelp PDF Reader, giving us accessibility, but also reading and writing support and assistance when we are on PDFs, say worksheets or material we've downloaded from the internet. Fluency Tutor in green there, that will help, excuse me, our students practice reading aloud and aid with comprehension. Then last but not least there is a tool of the moment for a lot of people with remote learning, which is Equatio, and that helps support and build the bridge to making maths available on digital devices and making it easy for our students to access. So that's a quick tour of the product family. And what I would say about today is that despite all of the changes that have taken place in all of our schools and institutions over the last number of months, and we all know a lot about those, there's one thing, I guess, for sure, and that is that technology use has risen as a direct result of lockdown and the follow-on through remote learning. And none of us know what lies ahead in terms of the next number of months and its impact in the classroom and where learning occurs. But what we want to be conscious of today is that each of the mechanisms and the tools and the ideas that we give you will work as long as there's technology available. So it will work whether teaching is and learning is happening in the classroom or is happening outside of the classroom at home. All of the strategies help support literacy, reading, writing, and comprehension. So what is literacy? Literacy is the ability to read, write, speak, and listen in a way that lets us communicate effectively and make sense of the world. And that's from the National Literacy Foundation in the UK. And it's one of my favorite descriptions of literacy. We can break it down into reading and writing and the mechanics of things. But I think this describes and links the most important elements there, that it is the ability to communicate effectively and understand. So back to the Texthelp motto, helping every student understand and be understood. And to articulate that understanding is important. And that's what we want to look at in terms of the main structure of literacy as we go through today. And I just want to, just for the next couple of slides, we've literally got 3 or 4 more slides before we jump into the live demo. And I think it's useful at this stage to look at what makes up good practice. So when we look at the research and we think about literacy, and I'm going to pick on a very focused area just for this one slide, and then we'll widen it out in the demo into Key Stage 2 or that upper primary school level, basically. And I think it's very important to draw out these areas. And this comes from research by the Education Endowment Fund in the UK. And I think this is very important to bear these in mind when we're thinking about how might technology help us with literacy. And they've highlighted a number of things here, and we won't have time to explore these in depth. But digital support tools are key to effective literacy in Key Stage 2. They help students when they need help. Speaking and listening opportunities, empowering reading and writing, building and focusing on comprehension skills and helping understanding, building focus in and around sentence construction and how we can help students with that, building in opportunities for assessment and feedback. And last and definitely not least on this list, ensuring that there are enough mechanisms when we're teaching literacy to make it effective that support those students who need individual supports. And so we're going to look at tools that can achieve all of those things as we go. And before we do that, bear in mind that we do have the writing process. When we think about the writing process in general, again, we won't have time today to go through all of this, but think about the various phases of a standardized writing process. Think about the process we take our students through, that research and pre-writing phase, drafting our first draft, the feedback loop directly within there to enable us to revise further, that essential editing piece to focus on, say, the mechanics or helping peers to join in that process to edit. And then, of course, sharing that content with others. And what you maybe miss on this process is each of the icons that are running across the center of your screen, because there's a technology tool and a feature that can help with each of these individual areas. It's up to a student, of course, whether they use those tools, whether they feel those tools would be supportive to them. But the important thing is, if we're establishing effective literacy and we want to use technology, we've got to give students access to the tools that can help those with proven practice and proven process. And if we move on and we say, right, well, what does the reading process then look like as part of this essential literacy? And this is, you may well be familiar with this, the reading rope. And I think it's a wonderful way to visually illustrate what the necessary pieces we need to have in place to achieve effective reading. And you'll see comprehension and the importance of word recognition there on the right-hand side of the rope joining together. But also, if you think about the left-hand side, we need to be able to help students understand language structures. We need to build vocabulary with them as well. We need to help support their background knowledge and those research pieces. We need to raise awareness of literacy knowledge. And sight recognition is very important there as well. And we're going to see how we could actually achieve some of these things. So I'd love to go through this in depth with you on another session. But this is just to serve as a background of what does good literacy, reading and writing actually look like. And one thing I want to add to that before we get into products is this. We're going to be talking today quite a bit about speech and about audio in relation to how it can help students understand literacy pieces. How can it help them? And this is just a quick bit of research. This is coming out of Australia, actually, this particular piece. But we know from research and extensive research that audio and listening to words can help substantially. And so, for example, we can increase reading accuracy when we enable audio. We can increase reading speed. We know we can help expand vocabulary because students can listen to words and they can understand those. And we know from our special education needs background that listening to words read back absolutely aid comprehension substantially because they reduce the cognitive load on students. So we know that pronunciation is helped as well. You know, I read something on Twitter recently which said, never correct a child who can't pronounce a word because you know that they've likely learnt that word by reading it. So if you bring in audio, then audio being able to play back words that a student or a pupil is reading helps them with pronunciation as well. So there are loads of areas that audio can help. And it goes even further. We know that that has a direct correlation to literacy outcomes when we give students access to support tools and multimodal learning. So we know that when they listen to words and when they have the opportunity to do that, that can increase outcomes as well. And also, and lastly, and I think this is very important, when we come to literacy and when we come, for example, to motivating students to get involved, particularly in the sphere of writing, we know that multimodal and audio pieces can help increase motivation quite substantially. You can see those figures there directly on screen. And I'm more than happy, I've put the link just at the bottom of this slide, but I'm more than happy to share this full report with you. This was just a summary and infographic. So we're going to be looking at speech and how it can actually help us when we run through the demo today. Lots and lots of positives, but it's an essential part of building fluency, both oral and written and reading. So let's jump on and let's talk about product. I almost hate that term because it suggests I'm trying to sell you something, and don't worry, we will give you the ability to grab your own copy of Read and Write at the end of today with my colleague Carrie Ann, who's also on the call. But we're going to talk about Read and Write, and we mentioned this at the start of the call and how it fits with the Texthelp product family. And Read and Write will specifically help us and help our students be supported in reading, writing, comprehension, organization, study, and in exams. The widest sphere of literacy is supported by Read and Write. It's definitely, we weren't very creative in the name, it has to be said, but it's definitely all in the name right there. For any aspect of reading and writing, Read and Write is the solution of choice for over 32 million students now worldwide. And as I said at the outset, this is going to work across all the platforms you're currently using in school. And the importance of it is that it provides a central toolbar. So it will support literacy everywhere learning is occurring. So whether this learning, this reading and writing and comprehension and understanding and research, all of the things we've talked about occurs in a Word document, in a Google document, it occurs on a PDF or an EPUB or on a web page, wherever it happens, Read and Write is there with this toolbar that you see on screen to help give your students, for me, it's an extra set of buttons, but for your students, it's an extra set of really essential support tools that they can pick and choose what they use, when they use, and how they use them to get individual supports. So everything is there in the one place. I'm going to be looking at this on our screen today. And in terms of the types of things that it does, don't worry about all of these right now. I'm just going to quickly mention a couple of headline points before we look at the tool. And these are, we talked about audio. So one of the primary things that Read and Write delivers is text-to-speech. For over 24 years now, we've been building text-to-speech engines. So we can convert text on screen to be read out loud in just a single click. We can have it read in regionalized accents. We can have it read in multiple languages. So we can have that read aloud to aid with comprehension, with understanding, with pronunciation, and all of the key areas of literacy. But we also provide things that are in line. So dictionaries and picture dictionaries. So students struggle on a word, they're able to click the word and they're able to get those and have them read out loud because we want them supported from an audio perspective. We have things like Check It. So we'll automatically check spelling and grammar, confusable words and homophones. So we can check all of those things to help students in that writing process to ensure that when they come to revise and redraft their pieces, we can support them within that. Audio note creation. So a student wants to expand their understanding of a particular section of a document. They can leave themselves an audio note, a recording of their voice, describing that particular piece or their unique understanding. Prediction and translation, so we can help predict words as we type them. So students who might struggle in vocabulary or struggle with that sentence construction that we talked about earlier on, excuse me, can benefit from prediction, and that will help suggest specific words in context. Not like your mobile phone when you're typing a message to your partner. It is a way to help students build their vocabulary in context and listen to the words as they go. We'll also show you how that can help build vocabulary. And then we'll see highlighters, which for me, I guess if I was looking at what were they designed for, I would immediately think research, and I'd think about then particularly about narrow reading, about understanding, about key terms, but then about how we might collect groups of words when we're teaching literacy, perhaps around nouns or adjectives, etc. So there's loads of tools built right into Read and Write. But I think what's very important is we can have a very quick look at Read and Write today, because we really want to get into what the tool actually does. And if you excuse me for 1 second, we talked to Georgie at the very outset here about the number of webinars that I'm currently doing. So I am going to just take a quick drink of water before we get to the next bit. My apologies. That seems very unprofessional, but hey, that's the real life we're working in now, in lockdown and everything online. So we're going to look at the tool itself. Now, I'm currently working in Google Chrome. So I'm going to show you the tool within Google Chrome as it works with Google Docs. I'm then going to be able to show you that in web pages and in PDFs and in multiple languages and in EPUBs and lots of different ways, all within Chrome. But bear in mind that what you can also do with Read and Write. Read and Write is available for Windows, it's available for Mac, and it will work with Microsoft Word, and it will work with PowerPoint. So whatever tool you're using, Read and Write is going to help support literacy right there. So let's have a quick look at Read and Write. So I'm going to go to a simple piece. I'm going to start off with a late primary school piece, and then I'm going to move up into a late secondary school piece, just to show you that the same tools can be used. An important thing about Read and Write in terms of being at the heart of literacy is that it's available to your students right when they need it, and it will let them know of this. And how do they know? What we do is we let students know that when they see the purple puzzle piece, which you'll see just up the right-hand side of your screen where my mouse is right now, that means that they can access all of the literacy support tools directly from this page. So all they need to do is press the purple puzzle piece, and all of the features that we talked about earlier are now available to them on screen. So let's see some support that we can offer here. So I'm going to start off really easily with an audio piece in terms of building literacy. So I can...
It may seem like the Earth is made up of one big solid rock, but it's really made up of a number of parts.
So you'll see there that as it has been read aloud, there is dual highlighting. So that's important, not just for those students perhaps with dyslexia who benefit from that dual highlighting. So the sentence is highlighted in one color and the individual word is highlighted. But think about students building vocabulary and each individual word being highlighted as it's read. So they can start to learn pronunciations and individual words there. So we can have that read out loud. So that's going to help me with comprehension, because my load isn't in the reading piece. My load is now on the understanding and in making sense of the text that I'm able to hear read back. So that's going to help me with comprehension at many different ages. And these, the language that you hear there, I have that on a UK English voice.
It may seem like the Earth is made up of one big...
And for each individual student, to support them in literacy, we can change that voice around. So I can change the voice and I can even change the language. So if I have Arabic content on screen, or Spanish or German or any major language on there, I have over 60 languages and voices that I can pick from. If your students originate from the UK and they want regional accents, then we can provide that too. And they can also flip the gender, so they can have female Spanish, male Spanish as well. So for most of the languages, we have multiple choices that students can follow through on. There's other things they have. They can slow that text right down. So if a particular student needs individual support and they want to slow that down, they have access to that. They can continuous read, so they can just keep reading. Text, read and write can just keep reading through the entire piece on screen. Useful if a student wants to pop a pair of headphones on and listen to a worksheet or a resource or a bit of background research. Simply press play, turn on continuous reading, they can listen to it. Speak on each word we're going to come to right in a few minutes, so I'm going to turn it on, and that will help me with talk as I type when it comes to writing. And I can also pick the translation language. So for example, I'm going to change this and I can have French, Portuguese, and Spanish. I'm going to change that to Spanish and I'm going to change it to OK. So that means that I now have a translation facility in there. So for students where their first or mother tongue is not English, but they're studying through the medium of English, they have access to check the same word in their own language. So text-to-speech is helpful in this case of supporting individual students. But then if I go across, the other thing that I have for text-to-speech is, see these words are in an image or a diagram. They're not accessible, so students may not be able to pronounce that word or listen to that word or understand what that word is. So they can simply drag their mouse over a word, and you'll hear that word read out loud in just a little second.
Mindful.
And that has processed that word, and I can also get a dictionary definition for that word if it's new. This is particularly useful when we're starting to learn academic language, particularly in a document such as this, where it's not conversational language. We're starting to learn new words and we need definitions and pronunciations of those. They may not be accessible. Accessibility really in this case is important for some students, but for many students in your classroom, it's the ability to simply listen to it back and be able to understand that better. So that will give us the capability to access words wherever we need them. But let's think about translations. So for example, if I come across a word when I'm reading this, right, and I'm not quite sure what, well, let's just see the word rock there. So I can highlight the word rock, and perhaps my mother tongue is Spanish and I just need some help with this English piece. I can go up and I can click translate. And now I have that word translated back to me. And what I can also get is this read out loud. So I can have that read out loud and hear that as well, but I can see the standardized text. So this is useful for language both ways. So text-to-speech starts to help us in many different ways with literacy. But then let's look at something different. Let's look at how we could help support literacy and vocabulary in a wider way. If I take this word earth, okay, and I could pick any word within this, I'll just take this word earth. I also have access to these tools. So I have access to dictionary. So I can click dictionary. I can get a dictionary definition of this individual word. I can hear it read out loud as an individual word. But I can also get the dictionary definition read out loud as well.
None. The third planet from the sun.
And you'll see that that is dual highlighted as well to help with that understanding. So we don't necessarily have to process the reading element when it comes to literacy. We can focus on the understanding piece of that as well. So that gives us text to speech in so many different ways. But then the other thing we've got is a visual. So we've got the ability to press our picture dictionary in the top left-hand corner here. And now we have a picture reference for the word that we have pulled in. So we can start to bring a visual representation of that word into our document or outside the document, as you see, and we can tie that up with a visual perspective. What's really useful within both Word and Google is we can just take that image and we can drag it directly into the document, and we can place that image in the document, which means that if we're trying to understand a specific document or a new text, we can drag widget images directly in just like that. So we can have visual cues to help us learn and build new vocabulary. I'm just going to delete that for a little second. So we can highlight any word and we can have this read out loud or translated as you have just seen on screen. But here's another thing you could do. So let's take this particular piece And let's think about accessibility in literacy for a second. And let's think about online learning and us giving this document. This could be a PDF, a Word document, a Google Doc, or a web page to a student. And we're asking them to consume this content, perhaps to learn from it, to be ready for some comprehension questions at the end. So how might we provide that in a different format? Well, what you can do as a teacher is simply this. I can control an A, okay, or just select all by dragging your mouse. Just select all the text. And if I go right the way up here, you'll see just top left-hand side, this is Audio Maker. I can press Audio Maker. And what this does is read and write goes away. It converts all of the text on the page into an audio file, an MP3 audio file. You see it's just downloaded in literally a couple of seconds in the bottom left of my screen here, just down here. And this now can be played back. So a student could listen to this on their mobile phone or their tablet device. They could listen to it anywhere and everywhere that they have access to a device. This means that they can consume content. Think back to the important part of literacy, that comprehension piece. Really, really important that we give students a chance and an ability and an opportunity to listen to words and not be stressed by the cognitive load of reading. But they can also, of course, read along whilst they're listening. So it's going to strengthen sight reading as well as we go, and word recognition. So there are many upsides to using audio. We talked about them on the infographic. Read and write makes it a real reality there as well. So let's take that one step further. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to go all the way down to some questions in this document. Okay. So we're building the ability here to support writing. Okay. So things that can happen to support writing here, as an example, we can have talk as I type. Now for students who need it, they can listen, or who simply want it, they can listen to words read back aloud as they type them, one word or one sentence at a time. So in order to support literacy and to support things like dyslexia specifically, students can listen to the word after they type it, so they immediately have that revision and review piece back. So if I type a word and then I press the space button, so new word, I'll hear it read out loud. Let's try it again.
Crust.
And as I press the full stop, because I've finished the word, it's going to read that back. So I'm happy that that word is the word that I chose. And now I've been able to hear it out loud. I can be more confident in the sentence construction and the words, and indeed, of course, the spelling that I've put in place with that. And of course, if we simply wanted to have this read out loud to see if the sentence made sense.
They make up the crust.
So now I can listen to that read out loud and I can be happy with that, safe in the knowledge that that's a well-constructed sentence. I think it makes sense and it's a good answer. So the other thing that we have here is to support writing is the ability to have prediction. So prediction is going to suggest words on there. So I'm just going to delete, I'm just going to type the exact same sentence actually, and I'm going to turn on prediction. So students can choose just to turn this on, flick of a button. And now what happens is as I start to type, you will see that it gives me recommendations for the words that I might want to use. It's putting up in there because it's guessing this makes sense in the sentence. But here's the thing, with that ability to read it out loud and support my literacy, I can simply move my mouse.
Use. Used. Until. Under. Understand. Up.
I'm happy with the word up. That is the right word I want to use. And I just have to click it. And then if I start to type again, yep, I can use that. And I can use, let's use the right word here. So is crust there? So crucial could be a correct word there.
Crucial.
But that doesn't make sense in the context.
Crust. Crust.
Crust makes sense. So let's click that and we can put it in place. So students can pace themselves through this, and much like the prediction on your phone, this is much better. It's in context and it reads it out loud. And actually what it also does as we go, and let me just show you this. Do you remember the dictionary that we had up earlier? We have the dictionary up earlier here as well. So
courage. Car.
You see the dictionary changing on the left-hand side, just as I cycle through the prediction. So not only can they hear the word read out loud, they can make a much better guess or approximation if it's the right word, because they have the dictionary definition there too. So we have lots of ways that students can be helped when it comes to writing. The last way that I'll show you here is, and I probably just need to put a quick typo in here, and we'll turn prediction off. We don't need a correction generator for that, but I can turn things like check it on, and check it is part of the revision and review process. It's going to go away and it's going to check spelling, punctuation, and grammar, and it's going to report back on those and underline them in a color-coded way. And now then what it's going to do in that case is it's going to give me recommendations for change, and I can use the prediction engine with that as well to highlight each of those. So for a check at the revision stage, really important to allow students and equip them not with those automated tools that come with our standard word processors that we all use, but with something a lot more powerful. The last thing, and we won't have time to cover this, but that I'm going to mention in terms of writing is also this facility. So let's see how we could give students the ability to articulate their learning as they go, and that is with dictation. So perhaps we can increase motivation through this. We can encourage them to write more words, but all it takes to dictate is press the dictation button, crust, and you'll see here that I can type easily by using dictation. So I can express myself in many different ways with that tool. So that's just some of the tools that are available. And just before we skip into the other platforms that we have, I'm going to show you this one last tool. So think about distractions and reading distractions. Think about when we're used to book work and we want to support reading, and perhaps we want to do it line by line and have a guide. Well, we have Screen Mask for that, which can provide a screen overlay. It can reduce distractions directly on our screen. It can give us the ability to increase the size or change the color of that, but it's helping focus students. And we could reduce that to have it to one line at a time. So if I go into the settings at this point, I can change that so as I only have one line at a time as I go through. So let me just click OK. And now I have the ability to page through one line at a time. So it's, you know, when we used rulers and we used pages on paper books, now we have the ability to do that and support students in their reading and reduce their distractions. So I'm just going to turn that one right the way off there. Lots of other things that we can do here, but one of the things we didn't mention was vocabulary and how we could support development of vocabulary. And one of the things we have here is a vocabulary tool built right into Read and Write to support literacy and vocabulary particularly. And it's this button just up here. So what we can do is, if a student, or you want to create a resource yourself as an educator, if a student has found individual words that are new to them, they can make a table of reference for that. So for example, I will simply highlight my new word of today is earth. I'll highlight it with my digital highlighter. My new word is crust. I'll highlight it again. It doesn't matter the colors. I'm just going to color code them just to show you the different colors that are here. There's mantle, and let's use the word core there as well, okay? And what I can do is I can simply now have highlighted the words, the new vocabulary words that perhaps I need to focus my attention on, and I can go right the way up to vocabulary maker right here, press the button. And what it's going to do now is Read and Write is going to go away. It's going to, in a couple of seconds, make a brand new document, which is just going to appear. I'm not pressing anything at this point. I've just clicked that one button. It'll now create a vocabulary document for me. So it now gives me the tools that I need and the words that I need with their definition, with their symbol, and it also gives me a very helpful notes comment here as well. So this helpful notes comment is useful to add additional pieces in. And I could perhaps put in my localized language within that, my mother tongue. I could type that as a translation. I could also put a voice note in here if I wanted to record my voice. But now I have the ability to see those new words and to use this as a reference list. So this is really useful for a student, but also for a teacher to use as well. And the other thing that we can do here is just on those highlighters, and we'll do it really, really quickly. I'm going to clear those just by pressing the clear button. Let's say I was being asked to use this as a research piece and I wanted to gather some and try and produce a more narrow piece? Well, I could highlight pieces of text here as I go, and I could just use my digital highlighters. I'll use this one, I'll use this. So I've now highlighted the key terms. So perhaps this is revision and review, or perhaps it is literally to produce a more narrow reading opportunity. And if I then press the collect highlight button and OK, we get a brand new document. And this document is going to pop up on screen. And this document will have all of the highlights that I pulled from that document and a link back to the original document and who created it. So it's a really, really good way to help students produce dedicated sections of text and pull them out that are key to understanding the body of text. And it's really easy to do. So remember I said earlier, this is a Key Stage 2 piece. This is upper primary. If we go to upper secondary, the same tools will work very well on any level of text. So we can open up Read and Write. We can play this back.
The story of Dracula is told here.
So perhaps we want to make this into an audiobook. We can click the button. Perhaps we need to pull out key terms. We could use the highlighters for that. Perhaps what we need to do is help support us with effective answering of questions. So I could write this piece, this answer, and I could listen to it back.
Jonathan Harker is an earnest developer.
This is a great way to proofread or proof listen, as I like to call it, your actual answers from a student's perspective. You're going to hear if it makes sense. You're going to hear if it's coherent. You're going to hear spelling mistakes within that. It's a fabulous tool to help support literacy within this. So it doesn't matter the level that we're working at. We've got the ability to use all of these tools to help support literacy anywhere. But also we can help this on the web as well. So those tools that we saw earlier, those tools we can get access to through the Read and Write toolbar on a web page. So we can go straight here and we can hover over any text.
Going into space is a tree shared by.
And I've set that to read quite fast because that's how I prefer. Okay, so we have access to that and all of those tools to support literacy every place it happens. So we've got these areas, and remember, we still have the ability, for example, to highlight an individual word. We can go up, we can get a dictionary definition, we can get a picture definition, so we can start to build our understanding of a piece. Now, what happens if you've given this piece out to a student? You want to encourage reading of this piece, but it's perhaps above the reading level of the student. Well, we can go right the way over here, and we can press Simplify. And what this will do is, this will simplify the text on the page. Students just have to press this once, and it will take all of the text out of the page, remove all of the distractions, and it will allow students to simplify it. What can they do to help support them in literacy? They can reduce the reading level and the difficulty of the text to suit their particular level of ability. So I can press the Simplify button, and it'll start to simplify that text. The meaning and the purpose will still be the same, and I can simplify that down as far as I need to in order to understand it. And if I need to help build my understanding of words, the Discover feature will highlight individual words that perhaps are new words or larger words or more complex, and I can click on any of these words and I can get a better understanding of those words. And of course I can have them read out loud as well. If I need special support, perhaps I am visually impaired, I can increase the size of the font there as well. So whatever we're asking students to do, to research, to read, or to write, we've got the support mechanisms available to them there as well. And this is actually really useful, I find, for teachers as well, because if you take a piece that you want to share with your class, perhaps build some comprehension or just send it out as a reading piece, we can use this tool to very simply create it in the font size, create it in a simpler reading level, and copy and paste all the text and pop it right into a Google Doc. Really useful for that. So that gives us the ability there. And don't forget, the same ability applies on another language that's not English. So on here, I could simply go down and I could set my voice. And let's just see, let's go down to Spanish moniker right here. I could go OK, and now I want this read out loud. And obviously I've sped that up quite high, but that is now available in any language that you have listed there. So in French and in Spanish, English. So those are available to me. So depending on the language support I need, we have those there with us. So I'm going to now jump in and show you very quickly a PDF. We don't need to go through all of this, but in terms of literacy support, we can still help by providing audio here by clicking. Oh, and what we should have done was told it that it wasn't actually, still a Spanish text. So I'm going to change that back. I'm going to change that back to, let's put an American one in here, and let's go here and here. Okay.
In the same journey time that it would take a car to go from Manchester to Cornwall.
So we've got this support, we've got our translation support, we've got our dictionary and picture dictionary support. All of these are helping with reading, writing, comprehension. We've got all of these tools there. And directly within here, we also have, so for example, if this was a PDF I had to complete, I've got my typewriter piece directly within here, and I have access to prediction as I type as well. So all of those same tools are available to me no matter where I happen to be learning. Okay, and the same is true of, let's say, an EPUB file. So this EPUB file right here, I will go, this is of mice and men. And if I open up, there's my purple puzzle piece. I have it. Now I can go and I can say, right, I want to hear that read out loud, and I can hover over it. So now I have audio. Now I can listen to that back. Now I can get definitions. Now I can build my vocabulary table to support my vocabulary. And I can also support highlighting as well. So if I need to reduce this down in terms of research or study and build out a more condensed piece, I can do that and do that very easily with those tools. And of course, those tools that we saw earlier, really useful. I mean, think about activities in and around that. So let's say we're doing nouns. Okay, is it a person, place, or thing? And all I'm asking for my students is to use the read and write colored digital highlighters and highlight each of these in blue, yellow, and pink. So if you can think back to what we did before, for example, I can go and I could say, right, well, I need to highlight a person in blue, and I can do blue, and I can, a thing, let's do that in pink. So let's pick out a seat, and if I do that in pink, what's going to happen when I press the collect highlights button is it's going to group each of those individual areas into a brand new document. I've got instant learning with this. There I am right at the heart supporting literacy through this as well. So there are so many ways to support literacy, reading, writing, comprehension specifically, but don't forget the advantages in organization and study within there as well. And that starts to sum up read and write. And we've only got a few minutes left as we go through, about 10 minutes or so left here. But I just want to recap on some of those as we go. And I'll not play this live. I'll just take you through a couple of these last images here. But think about the support that we've seen there. We've seen a way to help support vocabulary, text-to-speech to support modeling and reducing cognitive load, and also to encourage students to check their work. We've helped students with the highlighters highlight challenges, perhaps in a document. We didn't even touch on that, or key terms. We've given them a dictionary to help build their comprehension. We've given them prediction to help give them writing prompts as they go. We've given them translation, so if English isn't their first language or mother tongue, they can access that to help support their individual language. We can provide oral feedback. Voice note, didn't even have time to go through. Teachers providing a oral feedback or a modeling of a piece of work is very useful, and then audio notes we saw there. And these, of course, then fit right into the overall writing process. You've got tools there for pre-writing. You've got tools there to help with drafting. You've got revision pieces there with things like Check It. You've got the ability to edit and get essential supports and help within that. And then our other tools, the PDF tool there is going to help you publish, and WriteQ, which we won't be going through today, will help you with review. And that also then plugs right into the writing process, which is where we started today. Think about the exact same tools. So by giving our students a set of maybe 15 different tools there in read and write, we've supported all areas of literacy development, areas of the writing process, areas of the reading process. The exact same tools are helping the entire sphere of literacy for our students. And so we've got one final application that I want to very quickly look at, and I promise you this will be very quick. We do only have 10 minutes left. It doesn't take us the length of time that it takes for read and write. And this is an app that works in your web browser. So this will work in Google Chrome, and this is called Fluency Tutor. And the purpose of Fluency Tutor is to help encourage students to read out loud and to help encourage students in that reading process and build oral fluency. So let me tell you very quickly how it works. Then I'll show you one example, and then hopefully you'll come and visit us again and learn a little bit more about Fluency Tutor. So what happens here is a teacher will select an individual passage, okay? So they'll select a reading passage. They can share it directly with the student, okay? So just one button. The student will open that and they can get support to read that. And they record themselves reading that. And when they've recorded it, they send it right back to the teacher. So let me just show you really quickly what that actually looks like. So here's my teacher dashboard, okay? And I want to create a new reading passage for my teacher, okay? Now this is not designed as a training session. This is a very quick look. But if I press share passage, okay? It's going to ask me first time I do this just to log in. So I'm just going to log in with my Texthelp account. You'll be logging in with your teacher account right here. And what this is going to give me is access to 500 different reading pieces. They're all leveled at this stage. So you can have a level applied to these: accelerated reading level, a Lexile level, a targeted reading age, a length in terms of word count. But let's say we just wanted to pick this very simple piece here, 150 words. This is the piece that I want. We can review it, okay? And we can say, yes, I want my students to read this out loud. That's age appropriate. They come with comprehension questions, okay? So a student is not only going to be asked to read it, but they're going to be asked the questions at the end to show their understanding. And I can share that very simply with Google Classroom or just with specific students. So it's very easy for me to send this out to my students, okay? So now I have been able to pick a piece and I have been able to share it out. Now I could also share it out in two different ways. I could simply go to a web page. Let's say our NASA web page at this point. Oh, and I just can't see from a Zoom piece. You'll see there is the Fluency Tutor extension. I can press the button right here, that simple Chrome extension, and it takes all the content of the web page and it takes all this content and it puts it directly into an assignment, which it will share as a reading assignment to my students. Okay, so now it's sucked in all that web page content, it's built this piece, and now I can share this reading piece with my student, and I'll show you exactly how that helps in a little second. Students have access to all the support tools. If I wanted to create content, let's say I didn't want English content within there, I could have went to a Spanish web page that you saw earlier, and I actually could have just simply pressed the share button and popped it directly in. But what I could also do here is I could just go to some reading text that I happen to have, and I could just copy it, and I could go directly back here, and I could paste that content in, okay? And that's the content I want my students to read out loud. And I'm going to set that as Spanish, okay? So I'm going to set that as Spanish. It'll automatically choose the voice it's going to read in. I'm going to give it a title, okay, and we don't have any time left for this, but okay. And I can just share that directly with my students. So I've been able to produce reading passages really, really quickly. Now, what does a student see? So if I go down to my web browser and I go to my student dashboard, what does a student actually see here? Okay, so let's see if we can see a piece that the student has. So you know that piece I generated earlier? As a teacher, I generated it from a web page. This is what the student sees. So the student can see this, and what they can do is very simply press record and start recording. Going into space is a dream shared by children and adults around the world. Now, when they're happy with that piece, they can press stop recording. And what can they do? They can simply press, I'm finished. And I can send that directly back to their teacher. And that's it, done. That's all they've had to do. They have had support in terms of text to speech and modeling and vocabulary directly within that. So they have access to all of that, but it's a nice, simple process for them to practice reading aloud. They can take as many efforts as they want within that. And the teacher will be able to see the number of reads that they've had. And you can also send that out as a cold read as well. So there's no need in that case to send out all of the support mechanisms if you just want a cold read on it. Now, this has been returned to me, obviously a very short piece, but as a teacher, I can score it. I could give a student a thumbs up. Well done, Patrick, that was a great read. Or I could score it or listen to it back. Here's what I can do. I can go through as it's being read and I can highlight individual words. And I could say here, that was a mispronunciation. That was a hesitation before that word. That was an omission. You missed out that word. And I can go through as I'm listening to young Patrick reading this back. He's practiced reading aloud, but I'm also able to assess it. Now, what that means is in my main panel, I'm able to review that and I'm able to see Patrick's progress. This is a wonderful, easy to use tool to get content from anywhere in any language, plus the 500 built-in pieces for you to encourage students to read, and importantly for you to assess it and build comprehension. It's building oral fluency, it's building comprehension, it's supporting technology skills, it's giving them the tools and supports that they need to succeed with literacy. And that is the quickest here. I absolutely love Fluency Tutor as a product. It is absolutely fabulous. And if you haven't given it a go, please do, and we'll tell you in just a couple of slides how to do that. So I hope you've seen just in summary here today how we've been able to, with just those two core tools, support writing, build vocabulary, assist with reading, give accessibility and provision for literacy to your special education needs students, help both oral and written and reading fluency, support your EAL students, and of course there was a big focus there on comprehension. Now we do have some things that we can help you with after today. We've got a tech sheet, tip sheet that we can send to you after today. So if you're interested in that, we'll give you 20 tips with Read and Write to support literacy. Just email me, edtech@texthelp.com. You just have to put one word in that and just put ECIS. And as long as it comes in the next couple of days, we'll ensure that you get a copy of that document. So just put ECIS directly within the subject title of that. There's no need for any more words, and we'll get that sent out to you. There's lots of resources for this, and we'll share this with you through our friends at ECIS after today. So there are wakelets, lots of resources to help train your students and train you as well. Now you can get a hold of Read and Write. That is free for teachers to get you up and running and started with for a trial. And you can also get a short trial, a 30-day trial. It's not free for teachers of Fluency Tutor as well. If you would like access to that, just email ROW. Looks like Row, but it's rest of world, ROW@texthelp.com. And my colleague Carrie Ann, who's also on this call, will be able to help you. She can also help with things like setting up a pilot, 60 days, 90 days for your school, specific literacy outcomes, quotes, or just point you to further training to help you get the very most of it. And with that in mind, with Georgie will be pleased. I am 2 minutes before my time. She's probably going to tell me I'm 13 minutes after my time, but I'm 2 minutes before my time. And I just want to thank you all for what I hope was an enjoyable hour of how we can support literacy through Texthelp tools, specifically Read and Write and Fluency Tutor. Excuse me. If you need any help after today, please do reach out in any of the ways that we saw. Edtech@texthelp.com or on Twitter @th_PatrickM. I'm going to finish by wishing you all the very best. I hope you're all well and continue to do so over the next number of months and the challenges that lie ahead. And finally, thank our very good friends at ECIS. Georgie, thank you for facilitating today. I always enjoy these sessions with you guys, and I do hope the attendees got something out of it. So Georgie, back over to you, I guess, just to round up.
Yeah, absolutely, Patrick. Thank you so much. And now you can have some breath and some air. Because
some fresh water, I think it calls for, Georgie.
There is so much that you've covered today, and literally I cannot stress to you how supportive this tool is for teachers and your students in the classroom. And every time, as Carrie Ann said to me before the call, she learns something new every every time, and absolutely, I totally agree. Please take up the trial and just test it and see if you could, if it's free for teachers. So make sure that you take up that opportunity. We will be emailing a recording afterwards of this presentation as well, so you can slow it down and get Patrick in slow time motion. And in the meantime, thank you so much for your time today, Patrick. I know you've got a large, busy schedule at the moment, but we really appreciate taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Judy.
I look forward to future webinars with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All the best, everybody.
Bye.